What's going on to a fan base that has a competent head coach for the first time in a long time? Welcome into the Broncos Breakdown, a YouTube channel that is coached by Sean freaking Payton. Greg Penner got their guy. I think it was their guy. I think Harbaugh is probably number one, but Sean Payton at the end of the day is a very, very, very good coach. So we've got some news and rumors after the move, including some DC and OC stuff I really wanted to hit on. It's an ice storm right now in Dallas, but I trekked in, baby, just to talk about today's show. So if you are pumped up about Sean Payton being your head coach, being the head coach of your Denver Broncos, then hit that thumbs up icon because today's video should be the most liked video in channel history if we're being honest here. Now, we do have some quick facts and figures to report here as Mike Klis from 9 News is speculating / reporting that in the neighborhood of $17 to $20 million, that's where Sean Payton's salary will land. And you know what? Pay him all you want. It's not my money. It's not your money. And it doesn't impact the team's salary cap. So add an extra zero if you want. I don't care. I'm happy the Broncos got a real head coach here. Now, I do want to talk about the defensive coordinator and offensive coordinator search because that's where this is going to turn to next here. There's some early looks at some potential candidates and then the ultimate battle of Vic Fangio versus Ejiro Evero for the defensive coordinator position potentially here. So let's start on the defensive side here because on January 29th, Tom Pelissero tweeted out that the Dolphins have agreed to terms with Vic Fangio on a deal that makes him the NFL's highest paid coordinator. Kind of weird because it sounded like it was a done deal, right? Came from a guy with a blue check mark who, is in the in, and nothing from Fangio's side. No kind of statement. Now, he's on the Eagles staff. He's a consultant there, and there was some speculation of maybe he's just waiting for the Super Bowl to wrap up. That would make some sense. That's logical. Or maybe it's his agent agreed to a deal, and Fangio's like, whoa, I'm not so sure about this. There are some other openings that are right around the corner that I like more than the Dolphins gig here, which brings us to this from KOA, who tweeted out that the Broncos and Dolphins are negotiating with Vic Fangio, sources say to Dave Logan. So we're going to look at a quote from Logan because we might have a bit of a war between these two teams for the heart of Vic Fangio, which is so weird to say right now. A year ago, he was 3 weeks from being fired as the Denver Broncos head coach. And a year, 13 months later, he could be back as the defensive coordinator. I mean, 1, I have a lot of old tweets I need to delete. 2, I've got a lot of apologies to make to viewers like you who asked, could Fangio be the DC next year? And I was like, no, they're not going to bring him back as a DC. He wouldn't come back. That's just super awkward. He was just fired. Why would he go back? Well, maybe he would because my favorite 2 words, money talks. Here's what Dave Logan said on his show, by the way. To be completely clear about this, the Broncos and the Dolphins continue to negotiate with Vic Fangio. So that is not a done deal. But to me, it appears that's the direction that this thing is going to go. I can't say 100% done, but as of last night, about 7 o'clock, that's where this thing was headed. It may be a bit of a battle between the Broncos and the 49ers because D'Amico Ryan's post just opened up. And if the Eagles DC Jonathan Gannon gets a job elsewhere, you got Denver, Miami, San Francisco, and Philadelphia. 4 options that are pretty intriguing to him. Fangio coming back as DC would be incredible. Let me say that right now and make it loud and clear. Vic Fangio as the Broncos defensive coordinator with Sean Payton as head coach would be kind of stuff right there, all right? But come on, right? We're all thinking the same thing here. He's not going to come back 13 months after he just got fired as the head coach. They're all mostly still the same people there, right? New ownership, so that's different. But the GM is the same, George Payton. That's got to be awkward. And then there's the whole, you want to come back and be, an employee for a new boss when you were the boss just a year ago? Like, this is pretty basic stuff here. If you left your job as the head coach or as the boss, you wouldn't come back and be a sales associate. So it seems tough to wrap my brain around, but the fact that these rumors and reports have not been shot down makes it seem like that plane is still flying and it might land at Denver International Airport. There is the other half of the coin here, which is Ejiro Evero. And if it's one of these two guys, Broncos country is in great hands because this defense under Evero was awesome last year. Kind of led up towards the end of the year when, the French flag went up and everyone just surrendered. But up until that point, they were great here. Here's what Mike Klis had to share, and I thought it was pretty impactful. Sean Payton has been connected with Vic Fangio as DC. But the Broncos love Evero, and Evero is under contract. Remember, they didn't promote him to interim head coach, so he's still the DC, okay, until a new guy comes in and fires him. Ultimately, Payton's call. Also, would Fangio want to return 1 year after he was let go as head coach? And does Evero want to stay after his best friend Hackett was dismissed? That's a new wrinkle, that last sentence. I'm guessing Hackett would tell him, hey, no sour grapes. If you have an opportunity to stay on and be a part of something great there, go for it. But we got to remember, Hackett and Evero, they go back to college days, right? They go way back. So maybe he passed on being the interim head coach out of respect to his buddy Hackett. So maybe if an opportunity arises for him to be a DC elsewhere, he'll jump on it. I don't know. If I'm Evero, you have a great thing going in Denver. You coach this team up well, and you finally have a competent head coach. Sure, he's not your buddy, but that's kind of why you don't mix business with your friends. Seems to me like Denver's the best spot for him. But pick a DC for me. Would you rather have Fangio or Evero? This is a question that you can just answer yes, right? There's no wrong answer. I lean Fangio. I can't remember where I saw it, but Vic Fangio versus Evero, who's more likely to get a head coaching job next year? Probably Evero. So then you're kind of restarting your DC search. Fangio probably going to sit back and be DC for a couple of seasons, right? It's hard to get a second opportunity as a head coach. So for that reason, and just, let's be honest, Fangio is probably a better defensive coach. They're both great. They're on Madden, one's 99, one's 98. But I'm going to go with Vic Fangio for sure. Hopefully he just, completely forgot about all the stuff I said about him last year when we were looking for replacements. I'm sorry, Victor. Now, let's talk offensive coordinator offensive coordinator possibilities here. I want to start with the former Los Angeles Chargers OC, Joe Lombardi. He seems to be the number one target or candidate, if you will, because of his time in New Orleans with Sean Payton. Some quick notes on Joe Lombardi here. He was fired as the Chargers OC following their all-time meltdown loss, Chargers gonna Charger, against the Jags, and it was probably very necessary. He was responsible. So when we talk about bringing on Joe Lombardi, there's a little Chargers really good offense. That means that has to apply to Denver. Lombardi did some dumb stuff. So I hope that he shakes the cobwebs off and maybe rehabs a little bit with Payton here. He was on New Orleans' staff, by the way, from 2007 to 13. Then he was the Lions offensive coordinator, and then after getting canned, he went back to New Orleans. So this would be his third attempt as an offensive coordinator for a team. You don't see people get that many opportunities here. Looking at Lombardi's offenses, though, so he was the OC for Detroit from 2014 to 15, where they were the 22nd and the 18th ranked offense. Regime change, out he goes. Chargers the last two seasons. In 2021, he was the fifth highest scoring offense. Really good stuff. 2023, not as great, and the injuries were a huge factor. As always, the Chargers were beaten up front, but there was a huge regression there, okay? Sean Payton gets to call the plays on offense, so the OC position is not going to be as impactful, right? We always like to envision, you're the offensive coordinator and you don't call your own plays. Well, I'm sure that doesn't mean you have a lot of influence. Not the case, but when you're not the play caller directly, you kind of, fly under the radar. Now, today's show was made possible by our sportsbook partner, BetUS. Go to chatsports.com/bet. Use promo code Broncos125. Do not bet on the over or the under in the Super Bowl. That's commie stuff. You got to pick a winner. Go with your gut. Let me know in the comments section. Ride with me, fade me, whatever at chatsports.com/bet. Promo code Broncos125. My next OC possibility is Byron Leftwich, the former Tampa Bay Bucs offensive coordinator. And this would be a great get for Sean Payton, I think, right? He was released from the Buccaneers staff following their loss to the Dallas Cowboys. And it looks like Tampa Bay is going to just take a hard reset. Tom Brady, of course, retiring today, but he was the Bucs OC from 2019 to 2022, and he was a Super Bowl winning play caller. He also had a guy named Tom Brady, so that definitely helps a ton. Let's be honest, call a spade a spade. But I do think this would be a good name to keep an eye on for. The issue I have is he has no overlap with Sean Payton. He has no real ties to Denver, so this would just have to be Sean Payton identifying talent that he hasn't worked with previously and bringing him on board. Let's move on to the third possibility, Eric Bieniemy, the Kansas City Chiefs offensive coordinator, who has garnished some head coaching buzz every single cycle. And every single cycle, he does not get a head coaching job here. Now, his contract with the Chiefs is up after this Super Bowl. So he's going to be a free agent, so to speak, right? He can go anywhere he wants and join any staff. He interviewed for the Titans offensive coordinator position after they moved on from their own OC, Todd Downing. So got that kind of going for you right there in terms of league notoriety. Now, could he come to Denver and reveal all of Kansas City's secrets? I sure hope so. I'm not really sure if he's the mastermind pulling all the strings. That's 90% Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes and 10% them just hoping that Jackson Mahomes isn't making a TikTok during the game. But when it comes to Bieniemy, I've never been a huge fan of his because there has to be a reason why half of the league, or more than that, has interviewed him for a head coaching job. And no one's really been all that serious about it, right? Now, he definitely has a great offensive background. He knows the Denver area, right? We know his time in Boulder has some skeletons with it for sure. But this seems like a long shot to begin with. However, maybe Bieniemy gets a little bit salty. I know there's some tension and friction at times between himself, Mahomes, and Reid. So maybe he decides, screw it, I want to go to Denver and beat KC. You never know. Let's look at Greg Roman now, the former Baltimore Ravens offensive coordinator. Some big names here to look at here for the Broncos. So Baltimore and Greg Roman sort of mutually agreed to go their own separate ways following the 2022 season and their loss to the Bengals in the playoffs. He was the Ravens OC from 2019 to 2022. He had some other roles on the staff before then. Now, he was also the offensive coordinator for the 49ers when Colin Kaepernick was there. So he is known as building offenses around the quarterback. That's kind of music to my ears for Russell Wilson, who needs to be tailored to a little bit. We learned last year. You let him go off on his own, let him go rogue. Well, there's a reason why Seattle tried to keep him in between the lines. And while his great playmaking ability is awesome, you don't want to take that away from him. Letting him just kind of free range everything probably isn't working out the best. So this is a name I could get behind. Don't look at Greg Roman and say, oh, they can't throw the football. They just ran it in San Francisco and Baltimore. They were never down the field threats. Well, that was sort of by design. Why? Because that's not what the team's strengths were. And I have full confidence that if Greg Roman came to Denver, he would identify what they do best at and magnify it, which is something Hackett didn't do. And that was on full display the last 2 weeks of the season. Now, let me ask you this question here. We had a live show yesterday. We were going to go live anyway, just to talk shop. And then they hired this guy named Sean Payton. So it's pretty good timing if you ask me. But on that live show, I asked the question to, we had almost 1,000 viewers at one point. Will Sean Payton save Russell Wilson? And I want to ask this to all of you who couldn't tune in yesterday. Yes or no? My final offensive coordinator possibility is Matt Nagy. So, another Kansas City Chief who could maybe come over and share some secrets and let them know what they're doing down in KC. He also interviewed for the Titans offensive coordinator role. He was the Chicago Bears head coach from 2018 to 2021, if the name sounds a bit familiar. So, if he were to come over, like him and Fangio reuniting a little bit, that could be kind of cool. When he was in Chicago, he won Coach of the Year his first season. And then after that, he just couldn't quite get the quarterback down with Mitch Trubisky. And things got stale. Things got 500-ish, and they wanted to shake things up. Was he the worst coach in the league? Probably not. Was he a bonehead at times? Definitely. But he wouldn't be calling the plays. He'd be there to just assist Sean Payton in making an offensive game plan. And I think that's a role he could excel at here. So, With that being said, if you have not subscribed yet to the channel, please go ahead and do so. We're going to get you guys the best Broncos content all year long. Now, quick disclaimer, after today, well, I'm supposed to fly out tonight out of DFW, but it's been a mess of air travel going to a bachelor party. So if you see some videos from the slopes, you'll see why. Not those kind of slopes, the ski slopes. So if you're interested in more Broncos content all year long, make sure to subscribe down below.